Hi, everybody. Welcome to Colorado Inside Out. I'm your host, Dominic Gizzuti. It is going to be a lively show. I can promise you that right now. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's get a quick take on the 3 Colorado teenagers we were just talking about here around the table who were arrested in Germany this week. According to the Denver Post, officials believe they were headed to Syria to join ISIS after being recruited online. Patty Cahoon from Westward, we were just talking about this. What's about Colorado and I'm happy they're just potential terrorists, not actual terrorists, but it just sounds confusing.
And stupid. Let's remember that. You know, 15-year-old girls, they can be so smart and just so dumb at the same time. Whatever happened to chasing rock stars? Why they thought this was a good idea, that they were lured supposedly through social media to go become brides of Allah. I mean, to go to the Middle East, this is just unbelievable that these girls, 15, 16, 17, thought it was a good idea, were encouraged by some people on social media, at least some turned them in. I also wonder where DIA, where, you know, you've got to strip naked to fly out, you've got to give every bill you've ever received in your life and 18 kinds of ID, why these girls made it to Germany when they are minors, that's another good question. But really, why? When I heard the news that the 3 were from Denver, you're thinking, what about living in Arapahoe County made it suddenly look like a really smart idea to go do this?
I thought it was also probably a blow to the confidence of the young boys they go to school with. If they would rather go be terrorists than go to homecoming with the guys going to that school already. So it's a little rough. David Copel from the Independence Institute and DU Law School. What do you make of the latest random incident here in Colorado?
Well, if you're trying to do something significant with your life, which is something people start thinking about when they're 15, and many continue to do for a long time after, that is more significant than chasing rock stars or going to homecoming. It's not something unique about Colorado. We've had 3 auto jihadi attacks in this continent this week. The guy in Quebec who ran over and murdered a Canadian soldier, the guy in Ottawa who shot and murdered the guard at the Tomb of the Unknowns in Canada at their war memorial, and then went into the Parliament building. And sadly, stupidly, a lot of the guards in Parliament are unarmed, but the sergeant at arms in charge of them was armed and shot the killer just before he was going to get into the caucus rooms where the MPs of both parties are meeting. And then yesterday in New York, some guy put a hatchet in the head of a New York City police officer. So the combination of people who may be mentally ill but are also attractable by this terrorist, hateful ideology is large, and it's all over the country. And we need to be willing to address it. These girls are going to be released, and don't tell me that you feel confident that 4 years from now they're not going to walk into some place with a gun or a knife or a homemade bomb or from a crock pot or whatever. The crackdown on terrorism that started in 2001 has prevented the large-scale airplane-style attacks. And so ISIS and Al-Qaeda are telling people, do it yourself, think globally, act locally, and there's going to be more of this.
Eric Sonman, political analyst, Dave brings up a good point that it's not just Colorado, but what did you make of the story that centered in Colorado this week?
We must be getting old. I flash back to high school in years gone by, and it was glee club and drill team and maybe student government and drama club. Now it's apparently ISIS. David makes some good points. I'm not sure I buy the line that when criminals. When crock pots are outlawed, only criminals will have crock pots or what have you. But it does it does point to the alienation that so many feel who are attracted to this radical fringe, fanatic fringe of Islam, and the somehow intrigue that it has over some minds, that captures some young impressionable minds, the notion of making a difference, of the ultimate sacrifice. And it's disturbing. And Europe is wrestling with this at a much more intense level than we are, but the incidents David pointed to indeed happened, those two in eastern Canada, most disturbing. And it's something we're going to live with for some period of time.
Mike Litwin from ColoradoIndependent.com, wrap it up for us.
Well, I don't know if this is happening more in Colorado than any place else, but certainly we hear in the news when it does happen here. And, I'm just worried personally that these guys started looking when that guy rammed his tractor into the side of the, what did he ram it into?
Oh, Granby.
Yeah,
Sure.
Granby.
Library.
That they saw this was a likely place to recruit crazies. And, when I was a kid, there was the Manson family, and there have been cults, and there have been murderous groups of all kinds over the years. It's not anything new that young people would be attracted to this kind of violence.
All right, well, let's keep it rolling. Bob O'Prea's campaign released a new TV ad this week targeting John Hickenlooper's leadership. The ad refers to Evan Ebel and other killers that were released and committed crimes during Hickenlooper's time in office. Late Thursday night, the campaign agreed to edit references of Evan Ebel out of the ad after Tom Clement's widow requested them not to use her family's tragedy in the campaign. Patty, this is a pretty intense ad, even after the edit. It fits in the whole Halloween thing, so it's a little bit creepy. For me, it seemed like a kind of an all or nothing move because it's not soft. What did you make of the ad and how it developed with Tom Clement's widow?
Well, obviously, Bob O'Prea wants to prove he's tough on crime, and now with this new action, wants to prove he's also tough on crime victims. He should not have been, he did not walk into this unaware. You might remember he did run for governor and lost by, 15, 17 points 8 years ago. And at the time, the Colorado Republican Party did an ad. It wasn't technically a Beaupre ad, but he certainly knew it was going, attacking Bill Ritter for being soft on crime, taking egregious advantage of a family that, whose loved one had been killed in a drunk driving accident, attacked Ritter for how it was handled, and the family was nothing if not supportive of Ritter and said he had done everything he could. Clearly in the Evan Ebel case, it's a different case, but when the widow says, I don't want this there, I don't want my family's grief used for this, I would think a candidate could respect that. It is unimaginable what happened to her. Everyone knows about it. Bob Beaupre would actually be a better candidate if he pulled that ad.
David, what did you make of the ad and its appearance this late in the campaign? I mean, mail-in ballots have been out for more than a week, so it's kind of one of the last charges that will be out there.
Well, as you wrote in your column, this is not designed to change anybody's mind. It's designed to get that dwindling supply of low-information voters. Patty's right that the Beaupre campaign did the right thing to remove the Clements reference to it at the request of the widow. The other things in it about the release of people who were very likely have said they're intending to go commit more atrocious crimes, including murders, was something that could have been fixed in the previous session of the legislature. There was a bill to do it. It didn't pass, and Governor Hickenlooper, as far as I know, wasn't involved in that. I would say if you were trying to make a more detailed and substantive argument maybe back in September on people who were making up their minds, these wouldn't be the incidents I'd go for. But is John Hickenlooper somewhat detached from criminal justice issues? Well, look at his record as mayor of Denver, when we had a huge amount of police brutality, of cover-ups of mass racist attacks on people in Lodo, which the police department suppressed the information about, and of course the continuing disaster at the sheriff's department in Denver, all under his watch. He was focusing on other things, and he was successful in many of those as mayor of Denver, but did a terrible job in his public safety role there. His oblivious attitude continues, among other things, according to what he thinks, what he said. When you had 40 sheriffs at the Capitol, and all spring in 2013, this agitation over the gun issue, he was apparently the only guy in the state Capitol building who was unaware that the sheriffs had an opinion on the anti-gun bills. If that's the truth, he is far too detached from what's going on in this state to be making decisions and leadership on criminal justice.
Eric, you've been an analyst of politics for a long time. You've seen a lot of crazy ads. You've seen a lot of things done at the last sort of minute. And while we're in this mail-in ballot season, which is different, that we've had a significant percentage of folks already turn their ballots, this was a pretty significant ad to be releasing in late October. What do you think?
With respect to the governor's race, a phrase we've used in large part with regard to John Hickenlooper that has made Bob Beaupre a viable candidate is the phrase of unforced error. I think this was an unforced error on Bob Beaupre's part. It smacks of desperation to me. It smacks of some internal polls that show the race getting away from them and with a gap much larger than perhaps what the public polls are showing. I think the chirping crickets that are the background music or the background sound effect in this could well go down as Beaupre's legacy of the 2014 campaign, just as the wrong way horse went down as his legacy of the 2006 campaign against Bill Ritter. John Hickenlooper is a vulnerable incumbent here, but this is not, to my thinking, the issue of his vulnerability. To David's point, if you want to go after him with regard to his record as mayor, about the sheriff's department, about police brutality, about Lodo incidents and lack of public disclosure of Lodo incidents, make that case and do that ad. But this is not that ad. It is not where John Hickenlooper is vulnerable. It's not where those swing voters, I think, are going to go. It is not the mark of a confident candidate. And I just think it's the wrong closing message. We've talked around this table how Beaupre needed, if he was in this game, he needed some closing message to sort of rise above and look like a credible governor and a credible alternative to John Hickenlooper. This is not it.
Mike, we've heard a couple of bits of analysis here. Do you think, what effect do you think this ad will have on the closing days of the campaign?
Oh, I think this is a huge political mistake for Beaupre. It's either an act of desperation or an act of ineptness. This is, first of all, you do what they call the eye test in sports. Look around. Is Colorado a dangerous state? Do you think your family is in danger because of prisoners lurking in the city streets? And it's not in any way feasible. Doesn't answer a single question. If you wanted to talk about the things that they brought up, those are plenty of things to talk about. You can go to every single state in America and cherry pick one or two bad things that have happened where people have been released from prison, but they didn't get it right, where somebody did something bad. That's the easiest thing in the world, and it makes no sense politically. What Beaupre is having to say is, be afraid. Look around this state and be afraid, and I'll rescue you from the fear of the Wild West these dangerous Colorado streets. It clearly shows that his internals show he's further behind than the public polls show, and that this is the Hail Mary, and I guarantee it'll be intercepted.
That's a good way to put it, Mike. Both Michelle Obama and Hillary Clinton were in Colorado this week to rally support for Mark Udall and other Democratic candidates. Meanwhile, more national polls released this week show Cory Gardner with a slight lead over the incumbent Mark Udall. Dave, we saw some big names come out. Hillary Clinton and Michelle Obama, the headliners of the Democratic Party at this point. Will this be enough to help Mark Udall? And what do you make of the polls coming out this week that still show Gardner with the lead?
Well, it'll certainly help him. I mean, we saw how repeatedly in 2012, Obama himself, back when he could show his face in the state and not be politically harmful, did 3 appearances just at the University of Colorado. This isn't, again, that's not something where you're trying to change people's mind, but it's where you're trying to energize them and make sure that marginally attached voters get out and vote. Michelle Obama and Hillary Clinton are popular with the segment that they're trying to get out. So of course, it'll certainly help him. I will say Colorado, the Udall campaign has shown how important Channel 12 is, because one of their online ads now features me from last week saying that, among other people, saying that Cory Gardner's statements about his support for the co-sponsorship of the federal personhood bill are completely implausible which is true. I'm honored to be there. First time I've been in a campaign ad since Al Gore in the 2000 Democratic primaries. And he was criticizing me then, so thanks to Mark Udall for supporting me. But I also did in that thing say that Mark Udall, like Cory Gardner, shouldn't be making any decisions that have to do with imposing laws on anybody else's health, because Mark Udall made Obamacare possible. We wouldn't have it without him. And it's cost hundreds of thousands of people their insurance, higher rates, losing their doctors. And we also know that Senator Udall tried to get the State Division of Insurance to suppress or massage the numbers showing how much Obamacare is harming Colorado.
Eric, will Hillary, Michelle Obama, and Dave Kopel be enough for Mark Udall to pull this out?
Well, first of all, I just have to say, when I run for office, which will be a cold day, David, you can be front and center in a number of my ads, and we'll hope for better outcomes than Al Gore and the rest of them.
Mayor of Denver.
Yeah, we've been looking for a candidate.
Yeah, exactly.
Run, Eric, run.
I think the interesting thing about this was, unlike when President Obama was in town a few months ago, Mark Udall somehow managed to fit the Michelle Obama rally into his schedule. He didn't have some other commitment that he just had to go run off and take care of. And all the Democrats, all the big-name Democrats were obviously on stage with the First Lady. The real story here, and it's not a Colorado-specific story, it's happened in many of these targeted states around the country, is the isolation of Barack Obama, that he has become persona non grata in almost all parts of the country. He can still go to Chicago. He can go various places and raise money. But in terms of making major public appearances with Democratic candidates who are at the margin between victory and defeat, he is persona non grata in 90% of this country. And for somebody who received the accolades that he did 6 years ago and more recently, that is a hard political and almost psychological position, I think, to be in where he finds himself right now. Whatever happens in this election, it's going to be interesting to see how he plays and handles the last 2 years of his presidency, and if he can rehabilitate that and regain some measure of popularity and approval in this country. There are two theories out there right now of what's going on with these polls. Most of the polls have Gardner with a small but still a significant and working advantage here. There are a couple Democratic pollsters, prominent national Democratic pollsters this week, published on Huffington Post, with a different theory, basically saying the old established methodology of polling, where you call somebody up and says, how likely are you to vote? And if you don't say, I'm certain to vote or very likely to vote, the call terminates and you're gone from the sample. These pollsters are saying that methodology is no longer applicable because the Democratic turnout machine is now being able to harvest votes off of people lower on that likelihood of turnout spectrum. We'll see. I'm a little dubious. Nate Silver, who's the guru of political prognosticators, now has Colorado at over an 80% chance of going Gardner's way. That is a significant number. All the Democrats who were so cheerleading for Nate Silver to be right 2 years ago are now hoping, like everything, that he's wrong, but that's where Nate Silver is on this race.
Mike, we have the heavy hitters coming in, and also Michelle Obama, Hillary Clinton, I imagine, will be able to get out that ground game we've been talking about from the Democrats for so long. Did it need a jump start, or does it already have the momentum?
Well, this was obviously part of the plan. I think one of the things that's really interesting is that if you add Elizabeth Warren to that list, is that you have 3 women heavy hitters. And I don't think any party in American politics has ever had 3 women who would be brought in to be closers in a race like this, particularly with no women running. And Bill Clinton will come in at the end, and he's still, I think, their best salesman. But I think this is really significant, and I think that Hillary Clinton's speech was quite interesting. I've seen her give way too many speeches. I covered that 2008 endless campaign, and this was a much better Hillary Clinton on the stump. She was sharp. She connected with the audience. She did a really good job. Now the question, I read that Nate Silver piece, and he's obviously very sharp and understands these things as well as anybody. The whole where this campaign rests, I think, from what it's explained to me, is that, let's say Cory Gardner has a 3-point lead, and that's generally what people think, that he's around 2 to 3 points ahead. And how much is that Democratic ground game worth? I mean, that's the question. If it's worth 2 points, then we're up all night. If it's worth 3, then Udall might win. And I think that's the unknown. The Democrats are remarkably confident given these terrible numbers. Could just be delusion. It could be that, it could be Colorado high. I don't know. But they are remarkably confident.
Yeah, Mike can bring up some good points. Patty, the Senate race, wrap it up for us.
Well, what's significant is not just that they don't want Barack Obama here, but it's more important to bring Michelle Obama, and we're getting back to the women's vote. I was at the groups you want to energize right now are get women out to vote more, get young people out to vote more. I was at a house last night where the mother was berating her 20-something son and said, you get out there and you're voting Democrats and she gave him the whole history of choice, personhood. It was really interesting. You're like, these are exactly the two people that the Democrats have to hope get out and vote. People who are not very involved politically at all, but these are issues that are important to them. One, being fed by your mother, and two, and the second is choice. And for a state that was the first state to legalize abortion ever, Colorado back in 1967, thanks to Dick Lamb, this is an issue that has gone off the radar for people under 30 years old. They have no idea, but I do think it's energizing people to go out and vote. So it's the uncertain voters, the ones who maybe lost their ballot, they need to remember they can walk out there and vote on Tuesday.
So we have a few more minutes than usual for Disgrace of the Week, so let's go to that. It's always our favorite part of the show, and this time of year, we have plenty of fodder. So, Patty, start us off.
Well, there are so many disgraces. I'm going to skip over Megyn Kelly on Fox News. Well, no, I'm not skipping over her. Talking about how you could Xerox off ballots in Colorado. This was a report she just gave, and it was debunked by none other than that incredible radical Democrat, Scott Gessler, who said, no, that is not the case. You can print them off if you're in overseas, which has always been the case. But I'm going to go out of politics, sort of, for the moment. The insistence by a small group in Fort Collins that Illegal Pete's change its name. This is a Colorado-based company. It's been going for 20 years. It's its 7th store. They've never had any problems. It is not named Illegal Pete's because it's racist against illegal immigrants. And that is just, it made the Drudge Report. So we've got our teenagers who want to go get married in Syria, and we've got Illegal Pete's making the national news.
David.
Yeah, but apparently the illegal aliens would prefer that it be called undocumented peace. As Patty pointed out, Megyn Kelly got the Colorado election fraud issue wrong, but who got it right was James O'Keefe, the guerrilla filmmaker who found 3 different pro-Democrat, get out the vote people, organizations, very eager to go along with his proposed scheme of election fraud, of saying, oh, I found some ballots in a fraternity where people have moved out. I found these in a wastebasket. Shame to let this ballot go to waste. This is the kind of thing that becomes very possible and very easy to do when you mail ballots to people who didn't request a mail ballot, as the recent election law changes wrongly do. People say, oh, fraud never happens here. Well, that's partly because fraud is very difficult to detect. We don't know how much fraud really happens, but we know there's clearly a lot of people on the ground getting out the vote who are really eager to get out fraudulent votes as well.
Eric.
No collusion. I was thinking along the same lines as David, and add to it the story this morning that Adams County apparently mailed out 230 at least, we'll see if the number, hopefully it doesn't go north of there, duplicate ballots that they're now trying to go reclaim or get out of circulation. But it doesn't lead one to believe that the system is quite as tight as you would hope it is, particularly as Colorado experiments with this new election law. Just to quickly, if we have a minute here, go off of politics. The Denver Post had a very strange story recently by their theater cultural person, Mark Rinaldi, about Union Station and putting down the redevelopment of Union Station, which I think is a masterful job. I think it is a very cool place. But looking at it through the lens of diversity and having been there a few nights and counting noses by black noses, brown noses, and just this really tired old lens where you have to categorize everyone by race and putting down Union Station for not somehow meeting sufficient diversity quotas. I thought it was a weird story.
Mike, your disgrace of the week.
Well, I'm going with Larimer County Clerk Angela Meyer, who for those of us who have spent most of their lives working at a newspaper, the idea of coming in and pulling out newspapers because she didn't like that had a photo of Mark Udall on it and it was within the 100 feet. And she thought somehow that was electioneering, which of course it isn't. And if she was worried about the newsstand that was there to begin with, then she could have moved her polling place a few more feet over rather than violate the First Amendment by grabbing the hard work done by the aspiring journalists.
The campus newspaper, right? That was it?
Yes.
We're now down to less than a minute, so let's say something nice about somebody quickly. Patty.
Well, one of the reasons Bob O'Prey has to be tough on crime and crime victims is because Hickenlooper, with the new announcement of unemployment, which has dropped below 5% in Colorado, has turf that Republicans normally have. It's good business news for Colorado.
David.
Yes, although that's helped by the fat number of people who have dropped out of the workforce and given up looking for work. Channel 12 for being a place where you can actually get political discussion without all the negative commercials and the bogus claims.
You're here.
We beat up a fair amount on both John Hickenlooper and Bob O'Prey, but hats off to both of them for showing up today, debating.
That's right.
It will be an hour before this show, so over on Channel 4,
and on Channel 12
then
after.
immediately or a half hour after the show at 8 p.m. here on Channel 12. So kudos to the two of them for manning up, unlike a certain Senate candidate.
You're here.
This one's personal, and no one will understand it except me and Senator Irene Aguilar, who's also a doctor. I had a slight medical issue at the Capitol the other day, and she, wearing her Broncos jersey, raced to the rescue and saved my life, possibly.
Well, good for her. That's fantastic. We'll add the kudos there, too. That is all the time we have for tonight. Thanks for tuning in. This Sunday night is our first of 2 marathons of all of our debates this season. From 6 to 11 p.m., we'll encore our debates featuring third-party candidates running for governor and U.S. Senate, and our debates for the down-ticket statewide races like Attorney General and Secretary of State. If you haven't voted yet, you will not want to miss it. All those debates are also available online, and as Eric mentioned, we were broadcast early tonight at 7 o'clock so that you can watch the governor's debate here at 8 o'clock right here on Channel 12. We hope you tune in. For everyone here at Channel 12, I'm Dominic Dezzutti. Thanks for watching. Good night.
Ryan, he's doing the EIC, that's engineer in charge. Some people call it engineer in command. Basically, he's going through making sure the color's right on the cameras.
How's it going?
For the show, Ryan goes through and calibrates all the cameras to make sure they all match each other. And then we set the iris. And then during the show, what he's doing right now is he's going through and fading the lights to make sure different people's skin tones all look the same, so that the brightness of the skin all looks the same. Making sure the angles of the lights are correct, the backlight is hitting right, the key and the fill light are hitting right.
My name is Patrick Logan. I do the graphics for Colorado Inside Out. I like squirrels. It's basically what I do here is make sure all the guest titles are correct and all the credits are correct, and then bring them in during the show. The hardest part about the credits and the graphics is to make sure that they're right. You have to be on top of spelling and grammar, and I try to be pretty good about that, but it is very noticeable if something is spelled wrong or something is used the wrong way. I like squirrels.
So this is Gabrielle Bryant, the producer of Colorado Inside Out. So if I sound like I know what I'm saying when I'm on the program, it's because of Miss Bryant's work. And it's also due to this little gadget, our teleprompter. She's back here running the prompter, making sure that I'm saying the right things at the right time. And if I ever look confused, it's probably because something's gone wrong with the teleprompter machine. I also come back here, and if we need to make any changes, this is where I would dictate exactly what I would need to say on the show, and then I would leave. Gabrielle would ignore that and go with what she felt was right.
And everything's really easy. If I need to change anything, I could just go here and make my little additions and change whatever I need to change. So first I hit this here, and then it will allow me to put the prompter up in the monitor there. So that'll give Dominic an opportunity to see what's there. So hopefully we never have any Ron Burgundy issues.
I'm Dominic Dezzutti. We want to avoid those Ron Burgundy moments, and it's key that if she's happy, then I'll get the right information. And also, if I'm running late in the program, she can show me how much time we have left, which I'm always giving very good time, right? I've never run late on this program.
Everything,
Exactly.
he has everything all together.
It's payday in a couple days, which is why she's keeping very legit. Usually I'm pretty late in the program, but she's
Yeah,
kind.
it's really fun. I mean, I can always have fun with it, and I can make it go super, super fast if I need to, or slow it down, confuse him a little bit, but yeah, this is where everything is controlled, so.
Exactly. This is why they call it the control room, with Gabrielle at the controls.
There's a lot of subtleties that happen for all of our positions, and we all have to kind of gel together to try and make the best show that we can.
Got a show to do. Got a show to do. Okay? Get the camera out of my face.